Well, a warm welcome back to Donington Park for round two, our second race of the day for the 2024 MSVR Focus Cup Championship. We had a race earlier on today and the reigning champion Lewis Clark claimed that first win of the season. This grid is based on the finishing positions from earlier on, but they're reversed in batches of 6. So in other words, the top 6 get reversed, 7th through to 12th get reversed, and so on and so on. So it does mean we are guaranteed overtaking in race 2, and that's not to say we didn't have some brilliant racing and overtaking in race 1. Let's guide you through the grid then and the way that they line up. Pole position goes the way of Rob Mason, and alongside he's got Donington Park race winner from last year, Simon Watts, for company on that front row of the grid. Row 2 of the grid is John Baker and Ian Mitchell, and row 3 of the grid is where we see the cars that finished second and first in the race earlier on today. Paul Taylor was second earlier on today, he's 5th, and therefore Lewis Clark is there in 6th place. On to the next row of the grid, that's row number 4. Sarah Hall lines up alongside Matthew Croft. And row 5 of the grid sees Ian Graham line up alongside Greg Saunders, who was poised for a higher place finish but went off into the gravel trap at Coppice Corner on the final lap and dug his way back out. Gary Mitchell is on the inside of row number 6 alongside retiree from the race earlier on today, which was Simon Waugh. And then as we move on to the final 2 rows of the grid, it's Jonathan Ogden and Andrew Weiss, who both had problems in the race earlier on today. And at the back of the grid yet again is Simon Walton, who is just driving the development car in reality. It's an ST Mark 3.5, and it's the car that's going to be introduced into the championship for next year. And it's important to say whoever secures this championship this year gets a drive in that car in the 2025 championship, the petrol engine cars, whereas at the moment they're all diesel engine, and next year it'll be a split class. It's still reasonable conditions actually, not that warm still out there, so just hovering around 12-13 degrees, a light wind, and whilst there are a few grey clouds in the sky, nothing looks too ominous out there at all. So we should be good for fine weather for this second 15-minute race of the season. After here, they'll head to Brands Hatch on the 18th of May for a further couple of races there. Then it is Alton Park next up. There is the test car for this year, so new for 2025 is going to be that petrol-engined Ford Focus ST, around 300 brake horsepower. Once they fully develop the car, because they're almost testing in public here, but what better way to test than in a racing environment. They're hoping it'll be around 4 to 5 seconds a lap quicker around somewhere like Donington Park, the longer circuits, compared to the outgoing diesel engine cars. Which say next year we'll have petrol class, the ST class, and we'll have the Z-Tech class, which will be for the diesel engines. But that's a new introduction for this year. So Simon Walton will make progress in that car, but odds are at some point in the race he'll come into the pit lane and retire, because once he starts to work his way higher up, he doesn't want to get involved in the main championship battle in a car that's not running championship points. He's the man who is in charge of this championship, and he doesn't want to get in the way of the paying customers in reality. So we're looking forward to seeing how that develops this year. I'm looking forward to seeing a good grid of both diesel and petrol engine cars for next year's 2025 Focus Cup Championship. So as we say, batches have been reversed. This is showing on the screen as a 20-minute race, but this is actually a 15-minute race that we'll see coming up in just a few moments' time. And we'll wait and see as to when the lights go out who gets the jump. So it's the yellow and black car of Rob Mason on pole position, the slightly orange colours to Simon Watts that's alongside. Red lights are on for the second time today, the second time this season we go racing in the Focus Cup, and it's not a bad start from pole position by the look of things. So it's a really good start from Paul Taylor, and also a very good start from Ian Mitchell. So Ian Mitchell is on the far right of your screen, but it's going to be Rob Mason that leads up towards Redgate Corner for the first time. And is it John Baker that's there in second place, or is it going to be Ian Mitchell? Let's have a look. It looks as though Simon Watts was a little bit slow through the corner. Ian Mitchell was a little bit too quick going in and ran wide on the exit, and that means that Rob Mason leads the way, and already race 1 winner Lewis Clark is up into second position. The pink flashes to his car telling you that it is the champion that sits there in second place. John Baker in the blue car is there in third position as they all descend in towards the old hairpin for the first time, and already we can start to see that at the tail end of the field in the development car, Simon Walton is picking his way through the order at this stage. So Lewis Clark looking to see whether he can pick up a nice early lead in this race. We had a couple of safety car periods earlier on, so Lewis Clark on each occasion had to rebuild momentum and try and work his way back to the lead of the race and pull away. Well, he would like to go green all the way here so he can pick up a lead nice and early. Bouncing over the curbs is the number 3 car of Paul Taylor, as he just about manages to squeeze his way through and ahead of Ian Mitchell there, who has now, despite the good start, dropped down into 5th position. But for the lead of the race, Lewis Clark has drawn himself alongside Rob Mason. He's got the inside line into the braking area for the Robert chicane for the first time, and the reigning champion and race 1 winner picks up the lead of the race in the early stages. Rob Mason down into 2nd, but already coming under pressure from the blue car of John Baker, who sits there in 3rd place as they work their way over the line on completion of the first lap of the race up towards Redgate Corner. And Lewis Clark leading the way and hoping to build a bit of momentum here. Looks as though down in 3rd place, Paul Taylor's trying to go around the outside of John Baker. That isn't quite going to work. John Baker has the inside line for Hollywood, but if Paul Taylor can brave it out around the outside at Hollywood, he'd have the inside line for the next corner, but he's already just slotted himself back through into 4th position. It's the top 5 cars that have broken away now. So downhill and in towards the old hairpin for the 2nd time of asking. Looks as though Simon Watts is there in 7th place at the moment, which means that Ian Graham will be ahead of him at the wheel of the number 27 car. There is number 11, which is Jonathan Ogden. He was a retiree from the race earlier on, didn't even really get going. The car faltered not long after the start-finish line. We're side by side for 3rd and 4th yet again. John Baker and Paul Taylor going wheel to wheel yet again through McLean's Corner over who wants to be 3rd and who wants to be in 4th place. And at the moment it's Paul Taylor that's there in 3rd place, but the blue machine is right with him. It's as though Simon Watts managed to dive up the inside of Ian Graham there, so that'll be a place gain. Simon Watts now up into 6th position, the man who won at Donington Park 12 months ago, and in the race earlier on today finished down in 5th position. Well, that is at the moment 1 place lower that he's just gained there, 6th place this time through. Of course, reverse grid race always means, subject to where you finish, you've got a bit of overtaking to do as they are reversed in those batches of 6s, as I alluded to. Now, Lewis Clark breaking away here in the lead of the race. He is now 9/10 of a second up the road from the squabble for 2nd position, and it looks as though, oh, that was close. Rob Mason almost had Paul Taylor make contact with him there, but then Mason runs wide going out of the corner, and Paul Taylor's looking to try and weave his way through. The 2 similarly liveried cars going wheel to wheel down through the Craner curves. John Baker's trying to get in on the fun as well, as he looks to go around the outside at the 2nd part of the Craner curves to get the inside for the 3rd part. And Rob Mason there has lost 2 places. Through goes Paul Taylor, through goes John Baker, and Rob Mason now down into 4th position in the Power Max liveried car. And all of that squabbling has just allowed our race leader Lewis Clark to pull away ever more. Lewis was fairly dominant in terms of the championship last year. He secured the series on 539 points. Ian Mitchell was 2nd on 489. So 50 points was the advantage in the end. And the way it works in terms of championship scoring, 30 points for the win, 22nd if you're 2nd, 23rd if you're 3rd, and so on, it diminishes from there. There are also 30 points for qualifying on pole position, and 26 for 2nd and 23rd for 3rd. So there's lots of points up for grabs over the course of a weekend. And at the moment, Lewis Clark is looking good to have, at the moment, scooped up maximum, because he qualified on pole, he won race 1, and he is leading race 2. And did he do that last year when he secured the championship? No, at no point did he win both races and secure pole position. In fact, there was no single race weekend last year at all where Lewis Clark won 2 races. He qualified on pole and won race 1, but he then couldn't convert that to a win in race 2. Well, that's what he's doing here. Simon Walton off the back of the grid in the petrol engine car making good progress. And look at this little squabble. Simon Waugh looking to try and weave his way through and past Ian Graham. Andrew Weiss is in on the mix as well. I think you've got Greg Saunders in there as well. Jonathan Ogden is in that battle. So they're all busy fighting away with each other for what's going to be at the moment 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th places, I think. One huge train of cars heading down in towards the old hairpin, with now already a quarter of the race, or a third of the race, having gone. Tail end of the field is the number 44 car of Gary Mitchell, who I don't believe is scoring championship points this weekend. Otherwise he would certainly be right up there. He's just, again, I think, just trying out cars and trying to sort a few, not problems, but just trying to make sure that cars are exactly where they want to be. And Gary Mitchell is a front runner in this championship and has been a runner-up twice, I think, in the past. Up towards Coppice Corner, that all got a bit tight there. It's been a change of car by the look of things for Saunders this time through, Greg Saunders, because his car was the black and white and orange one earlier on. Well, it's now the safety devices one, which means that it's silver with the red flashes down the centre of it. That's the one good thing about Focus Cup. If you have an issue with your car, they have spare cars, so you just hop into something else for race number 2. And straight across the gravel trap goes Greg Saunders. He did that at Coppice Corner in the race earlier on today, and now he's just done it at the Robert Chicane and has lost all of that momentum. So through and past him will go Gary Mitchell. Jonathan Ogden couldn't quite wiggle his way through and past, so the green car still remains behind Greg Saunders at the wheel of the number 4 machine. He was 34, wasn't he, the race earlier on? It's number 4 for this one now as well, so it's a change of car and a change of number for him. So just over half of the race still to go. Lewis Clark still leading the way at this stage. Lead advantage is 2¼ seconds at the end of lap number 4. So he's going the right way about it at this stage. Gary Mitchell still fighting away with Greg Saunders. So Greg Saunders looking to try and work his way back up into 11th position. And needs to fairly quickly because he's still got Jonathan Ogden right behind him at this stage. If they continue to squabble, it might just allow Ian Graham to pull away a shade more. Good little fight going on for 3rd place as well. Jonathan Baker still under pressure from Rob Mason, and now having caught them all is Simon Walton at the wheel of the development car. So the Mark 3.5 ST, the petrol engine machine, working its way past the diesels in a straight line with the 300 brake horsepower he's got at his disposal. He should ease his way through and past Rob Mason's car. He's now also trying to dive at the inside of Jonathan Baker's car. He'll get that job done and won't really compromise the diesel engine car off the corner. So out of Redgate corner they'll go. Simon Walton on his merry way. That now means that he will be up into something like 4th position it will be with it. 3rd place actually he'll be now. So Simon Walton still continuing in the race. Earlier on he retired on the 7th lap. Well, we're 5 laps in now completed. So he retired purely to make sure that the car had done the work and done the development work that he needed to do. And we'll wait and see as to whether he sticks with it in this one, or whether again he simply comes in without a problem but just comes into the pit lane to retire a car which isn't scoring any championship points. So we're past the half distance point at this stage. 3 seconds now is the lead advantage that Lewis Clark has over Paul Taylor. Nobody else really involved in a battle other than these ones here that we've been talking about, which is Gary Mitchell, who has now been passed by Jonathan Ogden. So Jonathan Ogden will now turn his attention to catching the safety devices car of Greg Saunders that lies ahead with just over 6 minutes to go. Up towards Coppice Corner, in towards the right-hander, grab the first apex, don't worry about the second, you'll roughly be in the middle of the track when you get to the second apex. And you can see that little puff of smoke just coming from the tail end of Jonathan Ogden's car there. All of these identical 2-litre TDCi engined machines, around about 248 pounds-feet of torque, so as you'd expect, diesel engine, nice and torquey. Get off the corners well, but you don't need to rev them particularly, keep it in the torque band. And yes, into the pit lane does come Simon Walton, so as expected, the development car in towards the pit lane. Now Greg Saunders really feeling the pinch here. Jonathan Ogden isn't going to try anything at Redgate corner. He's trying to sneak up the inside. They go wheel to wheel midway through the corner. On the way out, does Jonathan Ogden have the momentum onto the top of Hollywood? Well, he does onto the top of Hollywood. He'll have the inside line for the first part of Hollywood, but that becomes then the outside line for the Craner Curves, and then it becomes the inside line again by the time you get down towards the old hairpin. So I think Jonathan Ogden might just be able to hang on to it, and indeed he has. So through he goes, grabs the place from Greg Saunders. So that now means he is up into 11th place. Saunders is back down into 12th place, with Gary Mitchell sitting not that far behind them. And you can see these 3 cars are enjoying a really good battle, actually. If they can just work together a little bit, they might be able to close up on Ian Graham that lies ahead. And then just ahead of Ian Graham is the blue car with the pink flashes to it, which will be Andrew Weiss, who again isn't that far up the road. Oh, very close indeed as Greg Saunders sends one up the inside, and there is a little bit of contact between himself and Jonathan Ogden. Off into the gravel trap for the second time. Into the same gravel trap goes Greg Saunders. That was in race number 1, where he, all of his own volition on that occasion, went into the gravel trap. That time there it was just a little bit too close. Sent one up the inside of Jonathan Ogden. A little bit of contact between the pair. Jonathan Ogden gets away with it. Through the gravel goes Greg Saunders, and now Jonathan Ogden's attentions are turned towards trying to keep the number 44 car of Gary Mitchell behind. Greg Saunders come through. He will come through in the background of the shot. There he is now, the silver car with the red flashes down the centre of it. You can see he's lost literally the whole length of the Wheatcroft Straight as a result of that gravelly moment. 4 minutes remain. Gary Mitchell now trying to see whether he can hunt down a top 10. as he sits there in 11th place currently. Jonathan Ogden, who retired on the first lap earlier on today, having a good run here and trying to keep at bay a former runner-up in the championship. Let's just have another quick look at the replay. So Greg Saunders up the inside, comes from a fair way back on Jonathan Ogden, and then there's just the lightest of touches between the pair of them, not enough to cause any damage to either car. Jonathan Ogden gathers up the moment, and Greg Saunders skitters off into the gravel trap and does eventually rejoin, but having lost a raft of positions. Sarah Hall, that looks like slowing down there. The Mintex car possibly with an issue. So through goes Jonathan Ogden and Gary Mitchell. So that will now get Gary Mitchell inside the top 10. Jonathan Ogden will move up to 9th place with that. Sarah Hall still continuing, but the car just seemed to lose a little bit of momentum there. It may well be she just missed a gear or something. Sarah, who was more recently over competing in Barbados in the rally that they have over there. So 3 minutes remaining. Jonathan Baker in 3rd still. The blue car descending down through the Craner curves now. You can see just ahead of him is Paul Taylor. Just behind him is Rob Mason. And then just off that is going to be the number 69 car of Ian Mitchell, who had the good start but then ran wide, didn't he, at Redgate Corner, and then lost another couple of places on the first lap. So that all negated what otherwise had been a really good start from Ian Mitchell. So race leader may well be going on to the penultimate lap next time through. Haven't seen much of him, largely because he's now 5.3 seconds up the road, Lewis Clark, and on for what will be a clean sweep of points this weekend. 30 points for pole position, 30 points for the win in race number 1, and 30 points potentially for the win in race number 2, if he can hang on to it for the final 120 seconds of this race, because that's all that's left now. So leading pair about to go over the start-finish line. The blue car, which is John Baker, wiggles his way out of the Robert chicane, still trying to keep as much daylight as he can between himself and Rob Mason, who started from the pole position and is running in 4th place. Rob finished 6th earlier on today. That was why he started from pole, with the top 6 getting reversed and then 7th through to 12th getting reversed and so on. And also Jonathan Ogden is not done as yet with his progress. He's now managed to catch up with Ian Graham at the wheel of the number 27 car. So Jonathan Ogden running in 10th place may well be able to thread his way up into 9th position. And as I say, the car of Andrew Weiss is not that far up the road as well, but there's not a great deal of time remaining in the race now, so they've got the lap they're on and one more thereafter to try and do something. Jonathan Ogden runs wide though, coming out of Redgate Corner on that occasion, so just onto the green painted concrete there in his efforts to try and get right up onto terms with Ian Graham. The two of them pretty much together heading down through the Craner curves. Jonathan Ogden a little bit later on the brakes going into the corner, but also carries good momentum on the way out as Ian Graham runs a little bit wide out of the old hairpin. So through the little kink where Starkey's Bridge is, and then up towards Schwantz Curve, before you then get onto the brakes and pitch the car in towards McLean's Corner. And again, Jonathan Ogden just nice and neat and tidy heading round through there. Race leader heading on to what will be the final lap of the race. You can see the lead advantage that he's got now. So Lewis Clark leading by 6.5 seconds as Jonathan Ogden trying to get the overlap on Ian Graham, and if he can make it stick here with good momentum coming down the exhibition straight, he may well have the inside line for Roberts. Boxed in amongst them is also the car of Gary Mitchell. So Gary Mitchell looking to see what he can do. There's lock brakes from Jonathan Ogden. He makes contact with the tail end, I'm afraid, of Ian Graham. Into the gravel trap goes Ian Graham. Jonathan Ogden tries to dig his way back out. Gary Mitchell is able to scoot through, but also lost time as a result of that. But I'm afraid just the lightest of contact there has pitched one into the gravel trap. And I think they'll just cover that under localised yellows, one would imagine, because we are on the last lap of the race. And even Jonathan Ogden didn't get out the gravel either, so we've got 2 in the gravel trap at the Robert chicane. Jonathan Ogden's tried to reverse. He's then trying to pull forward again, but I think that car is beached. Now the final podium spot's not sorted yet either, because Rob Mason has still got fire in his belly here. The Powermax car trying to close in on John Baker's all-blue machine that lies ahead as they head round through Coppice Corner for the final time, up towards the yellow flag zone. That really means now there's no real overtaking other than maybe the sprint to the line, but pretty much they'll be locked into the positions that they are now, because they can't overtake through the yellow flag zone, and it does mean that Lewis Clark is going to take maximum points in the first weekend of racing in the 2025 Focus Cup Championship. pole position and 2 wins. The perfect start to the title defence for Lewis Clark as he comes through to claim the win. It's going to be Paul Taylor that's there in second place as he was earlier on today. John Baker finishes in third position ahead of Rob Mason, who was there in fourth place. It's going to be Ian Mitchell who finishes in fifth place, with Simon Watts not that far behind him in the end in sixth position. Simon Waugh, who retired in the first race, comes through to finish in seventh in the race later on over the course of the day, in seventh place in race number 2. And then it'll be Andrew Weiss, I think, is the next over the start finish line. Yeah, his light blue car with the pink flashes to the front of it will finish in seventh, with Gary Mitchell next up. So Weiss finishes in 8th actually. Gary Mitchell finishes in 9th place. And Greg Saunders, who had a bit of a busy race generally, didn't he? He will finish completing the top 10. There's still a few more to come through though at this stage. But for Lewis Saunders, he will be delighted with the way he has kicked off his 2024 championship campaign, with maximum points from him, and he will have set the fastest lap of the race as well for the diesel engine cars that are registered for the championship, 1 minute 26.254 from him. He also set the fastest lap for those cars in race 1 earlier on, 1 minute 26.304. So he has ticked every box, you could argue, over the course of the day. Fastest lap in both races, pole position for the race that counted, the qualification, earlier on this morning, and 2 race wins. So pretty much setting the mark for 2024 and what he's hoping to achieve back-to-back championship seasons if he can. Be a hard man to bet against at the moment, wouldn't he? Let's confirm the results for you then, following our second race of the day here at Donington Park for the Focus Cup. It's a double win. Lewis Clark claims the win by 6.8 seconds this time from Paul Taylor in second place, with John Baker there in third place. Rob Mason was fourth ahead of Ian Mitchell in fifth place, and Simon Watts completed the top 6. Simon Waugh was there in seventh place, Andrew Weiss 8th, Gary Mitchell was 9th, and Greg Saunders completed the top 10. Then as we move outside of the top 10, it was the number 55 car, which was Matthew Croft, that was there in 11th place, and completing the last of the finishers was Simon Walton, who was there in 12th place. Sarah Hall finished a lap down in 13th place, and then problems and into the gravel trap on the final couple of laps for both number 27 into the gravel trap Ian Graham and also Jonathan Ogden, who did not take the checkered flag as a result of their problems through the Roberts chicane. So that's it. That's our Focus Cup action done and dusted for this weekend here at Donington Park. But we'll be back out next time at Brands Hatch in Kent on the 18th of May for another double header there. Until next time, it's goodbye.